My wife suggested that I put an LED light into these miniatures. I, of course, thought this was a great idea, but I also had some other ideas for it. It had to be battery powered, but I didn't want the design to gobble up batteries or need to be recharged every day. I also thought it should only work when there is at least some light in the room, since it's only completely dark at night and we don't need it lit then. For making efficient use of batteries, there's only one ideal circuit that I know of, and that's the Joule Thief. Here's the Joule Thief in action. I mostly put this here because I wanted to acknowledge this fantastic site called Lush Projects, and specifically this simulator. I don't know much about the guy that runs it, but he makes this circuit simulator available for free, and it's really easy to use. Gems like this are what make the internet great. As you can see, the Joule Thief is a simple circuit, but the design is just pure genius. You can read all about the details on Wikipedia, but if you want to get a hands-on look at it, check out Big Clive's video, where he describes and then builds it. Since Big Clive has done such a good job of that, I won't repeat it here, but that brings me to the next requirement of having the circuit turn off in the dark. To turn off the circuit, we obviously want to use something light sensitive, and I happen to have a bunch of cheap light dependent resistors called LDRs. They're also called photoresistors. An LDR just has two leads and it acts just like a resistor, but one whose resistance changes with the intensity of light. The darker it gets, the higher the resistance. There are various versions of LDRs depending upon the resistance-light relationship you're looking for. With an LDR in mind, we can now look for a place in the circuit where a sufficiently high resistance could interrupt the circuit, but where it can still tolerate at least some resistance, because the resistance of an LDR doesn't go to zero. The clear winner is to swap out the 1K ohm resistor that Big Clive mentioned that is right at the base of the NPN transistor. So just like the other video, I glued the components to the back of the AA battery holder. Here's the circuit with the NPN transistor at the center. Sorry, it isn't easier to see. An NPN has three connections, the base, collector, and emitter. And you can see here in the circuit the solder connections to the base, collector, and emitter. Here's the connection going off to the LED, and here's the coil of the circuit. Finally, here's the LDR. I had created this circuit a while ago with a high resistance LDR and found that the light turned on only when it was fairly bright in the room. So I tried putting another resistor in parallel with the LDR, but it really didn't help much. So here I'm replacing that LDR with a lower resistance one. I'll leave the resistor in place, though it really won't do anything because the resistance is so high. Here's the package of LDRs I got from Amazon for about $8. I'm going to use the lowest resistance version so the LED turns on in a lower ambient light. Here's the old LDR that I'll desolder and replace with the new one. You can see here that I just hot glued those LEDs into the little miniature here and then ran a pigtail out, and that was just so I could pretty easily remove the battery and circuit and then replace the battery and then put it back in. And then here's where I'm doing that. I'm just going to reconnect the pigtails here, and then I'll block the light to the LDR, use a little cloth to really make sure it blocks, and then just test it, and then I'll put the battery back in and then put it back on the shelf. So here, both the miniatures with the LEDs burning brightly. I save discarded AA batteries to use in these applications because the Joule Thief circuit can make use of them down to about 0.7 volts. So rechargeable AA's also work great because they work at about 1.2 volts, which is plenty for this circuit. So I hope this is useful to someone and have fun with it.